Welcome to another episode of Damien Ichabod's Fact or Faked. In this episode, we're going to be targeting something that I've always wanted to do a fact or faked episode on, a conspiracy theory about a fictitious planet called Nibiru, but I'm going to call it Nibiru throughout the entire thing because I don't like to pronounce it properly, because it's a fake planet, and I'm going to prove it to you. But first I'm going to tell you what Nibiru is supposed to be. The story is some lady from Wisconsin claimed that aliens are speaking in her head ever since she was born, and they told her they were on a planet that was coming into the inner solar system and would come in every 3,000 years, every 3,600 years actually, and it would bring massive cataclysms to Earth. One of them called a pole shift. It would stop the rotation of Earth, tilt it on its side, take the crust of the Earth and push it around the core of it till it's on its side rather than the way it should be, killing us all in 2005. It was supposed to be May 2005 when this cataclysm was supposed to happen. When it didn't happen, she just said, oh, the aliens gave you the wrong date. It's supposed to be June 5th, 2005. So this whole theory is gained a huge amount of... It's ridiculous how much popularity it's gotten in the UFO community, the paranormal community. Because all these people believe Nibiru is real. Now, the whole idea is Nibiru isn't a planet, alright? It's what we astronomy buffs call a brown dwarf. And this is, a lot of people have changed it to a brown dwarf now. And the original idea that she thought was a planet. They said it was going to be a very big, but not enormous planet. Think Neptune-sized. But over the years, it's changed. It's changed a lot, because the whole theory resurfaced during the 2012 apocalypse a few years ago that was supposed to happen, but didn't. They said it was going to be a brown dwarf. Now, what is a brown dwarf? A brown dwarf is a remnant of the mass that makes up a star that tries to collapse to become a star, but just isn't massive enough to do it, and can't shine because it can't produce nuclear fusion. The right kind of nuclear fusion where it turns hydrogen to helium. And solidifies into a gaseous ball similar to Jupiter or Saturn. That's what a brown dwarf is. The theory in 2012 says that in December 21st, 2012, a brown dwarf was going to enter our solar system and kill us all. And everywhere on the internet, if you search for the word Nibiru, you're going to get hundreds of sites backing up this claim. You're going to get hundreds of pictures claiming Nibiru is there. You're going to get claims that NASA is covering up the whole thing of Nibiru. It is ridiculous how far this thing is spiraled out of control. People believe this is real. But it is not, because a famous astronomer, not so famous actually, but pretty popular name out there in astronomy, he's even been linked with Mythbusters, Plait debunked this idea right off the bat in 2003. And let me just... the link to his debunking will be in the description because it's way too big of a thing for me to read. Personally, I can't read it out here, but I'll go into the basics of it. The whole claim came from some guy named Zachariah Sitchin originally. He's someone who was studying Sumerian writings. He's claiming that there was a planet called Nibiru that Sumerians would believe in. But he did not find one. Basically, the whole idea is the actual writings he was referencing weren't real. And the real writings of Sumerians, Nibiru was not a planet for them, it was a god. And it was linked to all the other planets because they believed all the other planets were gods like all the ancient people did. Even Romans believed planets were gods. That's why we have Roman names for them. This is more important. There is no astronomical indication of the existence of another large planet in the inner solar system. I mean, Jupiter. This thing is supposed to be bigger and more massive than Jupiter right now, okay? And Jupiter is big enough to be seen from Earth, even though it's 5 times the distance from the Sun Earth is. And it is utterly enormous in scale. I mean, if you compared Earth to Jupiter in size... The size difference is gargantuan. I mean, you get Earth like this, and you get Jupiter so big I can't even fit it on my screen. It'd be like my size of my head. compared to this, really. It's a much bigger planet than Earth. In fact, it's the biggest planet. It's so big it can be seen from millions of miles away. If Nibiru is coming in here to end our world, why aren't we seeing it? People would notice it. It would be out there in the night sky. Why haven't the satellites, the probes, all these satellites we have around Earth studying stars and other objects, why haven't they seen Nibiru? Because it's not there. It's never been there. And it's ridiculous. There's a lot of other names for Nibiru, okay, which are all fictitious planets or stars that are going to come in and end the world. There's like 6 different variants of it now. Nibiru is like 1 out of 5. There's Hercolibus, there's Tyche, and some of these are fictitious planet ideas thought up by some astronomers. And they're in a spiral out of control. And things like Comet Elenin and Comet, what's the latest comet that went through that got killed by the sun recently? I forget its name. Ison? They've been linked to Nibiru as well, or Nibiru. Now, they say, the people out there who say Nibiru is real, is that it's a brown dwarf, that's why it can't be seen from Earth. This guy goes out to say that brown dwarfs around other stars aren't visible because they're so far away. They're in other solar systems, and they're ridiculously far away. But since we can see Jupiter and Saturn, and a brown dwarf ain't much bigger than Jupiter or Saturn, we should be able to see this. But we aren't. Now, of all of this, I want you to read this entire page if you believe Nibiru is real, because it will completely change your opinion on this. It changed me. I used to be a believer in Nibiru years ago, for like maybe a few months. I thought we were all going to die at one point. I was scared of the whole idea that the pole shift was going to come, back in 2005. Okay? This site converted me into a skeptic on this. Okay? I'm going to put a link in the description. If you believe in Nibiru, read this site. It will completely debunk the claims of it. But if that doesn't debunk the claims, I'm going to show you something else that will debunk the claims. I found a program online called Gravity Simulator, and I've actually seen this program for a while. Studying Nibiru and finding debunkings for it, because I've been looking for debunkings for years, has revealed that this program exists, and what it does is it uses the mass of each planet and simulates it to calculate the way the orbit would behave with the mass. You can create a new fictitious planet with whatever mass you want. It can be a planet, a star, even a black hole. You can create something that massive. And we'll show you how the planets behave. With something like a black hole, it makes the planets fly out of the solar system because it's so massive, because the repulsory effect is ridiculous. But I'm going to show you, if there was a brown dwarf coming into our solar system, what the effect would be. And honestly, you'll see, okay? I'm not going to spoil it. So let me load up Gravity Simulator. I have it here. Here it is here. This is the inner solar system. And I'm going to change the speed to make it a bit faster and zoom out so you can see all the planets here. You can see Jupiter and Saturn are way, way out here. They move much slower than Earth, Mars, or whatever around the sun. I can create an object right here. And from the internet, I have learned the mass and size of a brown dwarf. A brown dwarf in kilometers would be something like 180,000 kilometers across, but we'll use diameter, not radius. We're going to fill in some other things here, which I won't explain what they are, because they all have to do with the orbit. Semi-major axis is the longest point of the orbit away from where the orbit comes in, so the furthest point of the orbit, actually. Eccentricity is how far up the orbit is tilted. Or actually how long the orbit is, how much it's stretched out. Inclination is how far up it's tilted. We're going to set that to 0.98 and 30, and that guarantees to have something that comes into the inner solar system with those settings. I found that out online, we're looking it up. Now, for a mass of a brown dwarf, we're going to start with a simple, light brown dwarf, which is 13 Jupiter masses. Okay. With a 13 mass 13 Jupiter mass brown dwarf. Okay? We're going to wait till it comes into the inner solar system. And I'm going to show you what the effects are. Just wait for it. It might take a little while. This is probably going to be a longer episode than I ever wanted. But honestly, I don't care. See, okay, these are the planets. You can see Uranus, Neptune, Jupiter, and Saturn. And here is our brown dwarf on the left-hand side of the screen. The thing right here. That's the brown dwarf. These are the outer planets. As the brown dwarf comes into the solar system, look at the effects of it. These effects are pretty significant, but this is a very light brown dwarf. The orbits of all the planets change slightly. Now the brown dwarf isn't done yet because it's orbiting the sun every 3,600 years. Let's look at Nibiru's timetable for that. Its orbit has been changed. So now it's not going to take 3,600 years to come in because the other orbits of all the other planets and the mass has made the orbit change. So now it's going to take longer to come in. So the whole idea of it coming in every 3,600 years is completely debunked because that just can't happen with an orbit of a planet. It doesn't work that way. But look at the changes of the orbits here. Look at like the orbit of Neptune. It's been enlarged. Now look at what the object does when it comes in, the brown dwarf. Again, the more times it comes in, the more effect it's going to have. These effects are for a small brown dwarf. All right? And look at the orbit of Uranus. It's being stretched out. You think people would notice this. I mean, we can see Saturn. Saturn's orbit is being slightly affected. People would notice the difference of the orbits and the position in the sky being changed. For a small brown dwarf, it would still be obvious to the sky watchers something is wrong if Jupiter's in the wrong place in the sky at the right time. For this is for a small brown dwarf. Now let me show you what happens with a medium brown dwarf, because I won't even do a long brown dwarf in this. Let's go back to the original settings. I wish there was a way you can zoom out with the keyboard. If we create a large brown dwarf, actually a medium-sized one, medium-sized brown dwarf has about 50 Jupiter masses. I'm not joking about that. And that sounds crazy, but that's the truth. Look up on the internet if you don't believe me. A 50 Jupiter mass brown dwarf would have these effects. If we speed up the thing and zoom out, look what happens to the solar system. With a look what happens. The orbits completely, utterly change. Uranus's orbit has been stretched. Venus's orbit has been pulled around like crazy. And it's about to come in again. The more times it comes in, the effect of it greatens. And the orbits change even more. Some of them, I've seen catastrophes happen, like the moon being flung away from Earth with this. Now, Saturn's orbit is now crossing Jupiter's orbit, and Uranus has been flung out of the solar system. Okay? This is for a medium-sized brown dwarf. Not even a large one, mind you. A large one is 75 Jupiter masses. And the orbit's coming in again. The object, the brown dwarf, is coming in. Let's see what happens here. Because Uranus has been flung out of the solar system. And Saturn's orbit gets really stretched out. Now I'm going to pause the thing And I'm going to, I have to slow down the time. I'm going to zoom in to the inner solar system to show what's happening. Venus's orbit, Mars's orbit, and Earth's orbit are now crossing each other regularly. That should not happen with a normal solar system. They're all in orbits that are further out from each other. Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars in that order. In this one, Earth and Mars cross each other because of the brown dwarf's effect. This is what a medium-sized brown dwarf would do to our solar system. So therefore, since that has happened, and this will probably end up destroying our entire solar system eventually, since we've been around for more than 3,600 years, I guarantee there is no Nibiru. Nibiru or Nibiru, whatever you want to call it, does not exist. Alright? If that astronomer site doesn't debunk you, this should. Because these kinds of things simply don't happen. We don't cross the orbit of Mars. It doesn't work that way. In this one, Saturn enters the inner solar system and goes by Venus's orbit. Okay? That kind of stuff doesn't happen in real life. If that was true, we'd be able to see Saturn's rings from Earth with our own naked eyes. Probably. The inner planets and the outer planets are mixing because of the effect of this brown dwarf in this simulator. So basically, Nibiru ain't real. There is no Nibiru. Don't believe anything you hear about Nibiru, Hercolobus, Tyche, or anything like that. Because it's all nonsense designed to make you frightened of the end times. It is not real. There is no such thing as Nibiru. There can't be. The solar system would be completely screwed up if there was. We would not have a normal solar system. Every 3,600 years, the planets would get totally messed up by this. We wouldn't be in our solar system anymore by this, probably. If not, it'd be complete chaos. We'd have planet collisions, things like that. So don't believe it. There ain't no Nibiru. Sorry this is such a long episode, but proving this is... it's lengthy. It takes a while to prove it's wrong, but it is wrong. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Damien M.U.F.A.R.T. out.